All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Thursday, the 13th of April. So a lot to talk about here for the day, and especially from where we came yesterday too. So pretty interesting market day. Brisk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through in this video is for information purposes and not giving out any advice or recommendations. I'm going to have to do something with this sun that's in the video every day. I've been trying to, like, over the last couple of months, turn the video on, but I realized, I moved offices a few months ago, and before daylight savings time, it wasn't really an issue with the sun, but I've got the sun coming in here, every day in my downtown office, right at the end of Wall Street. I'm down on 85 Broad Street in New York City, and yeah, so it's a little bit of a different environment before than my old office on which was 110 Wall Street. So anyway, let me get to the market, but I will try to fix the shade or the partial sun that you're seeing in these videos. I'll get a handle on that. So very interesting. If you're a regular viewer of my video, yesterday kind of talked about, obviously the price action was really ugly towards the end of the day yesterday. I was even detailing, areas that, to kind of pay attention to for breakdowns, which I think is important. Right? You should always have a plan. Okay, what are you going to do if this breaks support? Right? What's going to be your action plan? And fortunately, that didn't happen for today. And the economic report was pretty good, which I will go over in just a second. But even though I sounded pretty negative yesterday, and was saying, okay, if we do push lower, these are the things to watch. I mean, this is a good thing to go through, I think, on a day-to-day basis, right? And having an action plan. If we break the support, how are you going to tackle it? What are you going to do with your existing positions? Are you going to add a hedge in place? So we will do that again, obviously, in today's video. We'll talk about, things to the upside and things to the downside. So really nice price action today. The SPY was up 1.3%. The Qs had a big day, up 2%. And those micro and small caps did a good job today too. I mean, they're still holding in there. They got rejected pretty nasty yesterday, but nice fight back. And you could see on the left of my screen, market breadth again strong once again. Again, we have a formula for up and down volume, which takes that into consideration. But to look at the raw numbers, for breadth today, you had in the Dow 28 advancers, 2 decliners, more 50, looks like 30, this is percent, I believe, of new highs, no new lows, new 52-week highs for the Dow. Again, it's percent, so it's just McDonald's and Merck because there's only 30 names in the Dow. S&P, you could see, so things are trending in the right direction in terms of breadth, right? We're still in this McClellan Summation Index. That's the ticker symbol $NYSI, if you bring that up on stock charts, but that is still in a bullish crossover with the 10-day moving average. That is one reason too, where we've kind of said, while this market has been going back and forth in April, still the trends are intact with breadth. We're not seeing any, anything that looks suspect there yet. So also, even it looks like the Nasdaq made a few more new lows. That's kind of interesting. Looks like there was, again, this is percent. There was actually in the Nasdaq, so that is a little bit concerning. There was 102 new 52-week lows and only 61 new highs in Nasdaq. So that doesn't look wonderful by any means, but it was the right way in the S&P with. So what do we have today? 12 new highs and only 1 new low, which is a banking name, PNC. You had things like, auto names in there, a little bit of pharma and biotech, which I want to talk about too in just a second. MSI, which continues to crush. McDonald's, have it your way. Or no, or is that Burger King? I don't know. I can't keep track. Cadence, which has been a beast. Merck, of course, which has been a very nice stock. Another auto name, CPRT. So you got AZO, Orly, so AutoZone, Orly, CPRT, it was like Copart, and some biotech in there too. So, you know, a nice mix. And then this LIN, which has been a standout in the materials group. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that I said that we would talk about. First, let's talk about the economics for the day. You know, moving, you know, softer, which is, if you listen to what the Fed is looking for, they do want some softer numbers coming out. And then, of course, when you look at the inflation, which we went through the CPI yesterday, and I went over the, you know, how it will shake out month over month if we continue to have low months. We will get to around, you know, 2.5% with, as you back out the previous month, you will land there sometime in June or July. Big if the numbers continue to trend lower with the CPI report. All right. If you don't know what I mean, I'll bring that up very quickly for you. I won't spend much time because I did this whole exercise yesterday. But if you think I'm nuts by thinking that that this can get to 2.5%, you have to look at the last 12 months, right? Remember how this is calculated. When they talk about the 1 year inflation rate, CPI, right? They're basically taking a 1 year look back. So as every month rolls off, you know, when you go a year back, right? Look at what's back here. Right, 630, there was a 1.2% monthly increase. That number needs to come off, right? And that won't happen until we get to July, right? And that number is gone. So then you're left with all these numbers. Now, again, there's a couple big ones in here. There's a 0.4 and a 0.5. So if we need to continue to trend around like 0.1, back this number out, and you will get to close to in the mid to high twos. All right, so that was yesterday's analysis. Sorry to waste your time with that again, but in case you didn't see the video, today the month-over-month number for PPI was much less than expected, 0.5. So some things are moving in the right direction. And again, something I said in yesterday's video too, it's going to take some time, right? It's not just snap your fingers and then all of a sudden the inflation rate goes to 2%. It's a process, right? And we're going through that. I did a Twitter space yesterday with the folks at TrendSpider, and I think if I'm getting this wrong, I apologize, but there was a very good point, and there was a very good panel that was on yesterday talking about different things, and one of them, I think that the fellow's name was Caleb, was talking about be patient with this market, you know, give it some time, right? Things are trending in the right direction, but you know, give it some time, right? I know in this in today's world, everybody wants results and things right away, but I think we're seeing, you know, things get a little bit better as we go along. All right, so that said, all right, for tomorrow, we don't have a lot of numbers. Well, we do have the retail sales that'll come out. So we'll see if they're looking for a negative 0.4 number. I apologize. At first glance, I didn't see anything, but we do have University of Michigan sentiment numbers also at 10 o'clock. So we do have a decent day of statistics that come out tomorrow on a Friday. Let's talk about the technicals, and then we will go through where the movers were for the day, some sectors. So first of all, I do have the S&P up here. I talked a lot about this virgin point of control being taken out. This is what I went over with members in our midday video, is that what we want to be aware of is what happened the last time that price took out one of these virgin point of controls. We kind of hung around here and then we dove back down. So in my charts, what I look at, of course, is the value areas. And if you're a regular viewer, you know that I go over the value areas pretty extensively, volume at price. And then, you know, notice that when we're above the value area or below the value area, I tend to rely a lot more on the moving averages, right? Because I already know that we're trending up for the month, we're above value, right? So next becomes, you know, what are these, you know, how can these moving averages help? Well, back in here, when we were kind of going back and forth, you know, a little bit similar to what we're doing now, right? We eventually started to break below the 5-period moving average and then the 20-day moving average, right? Notice what we're doing here. Right. And again, you have to take it day by day. One day is not a trend. So while this was a good green candle, we'll see if we can get some follow through and basically get over this virgin point of control. That is ultimately what I want to see happen here. Right. If we don't, right? And we managed to kind of, let's say we have an inside day tomorrow, right? Which, wouldn't mean anything in terms of the trend, right? What I want to pay attention to is whether or not we lose this 5-period moving average, as well as the 20-day moving average, right? Then we know that that the picture may be changing. But for now, we're back above the 5-day moving average and have really no choice to kind of be, I hate this phrase, but cautiously optimistic, right? Because the price is telling us to be that way. And again, I would like to see us reclaim this. Also note that we did not get over yesterday's highs, right? That's also something interesting to note. Qs, which don't cover the pre-market activity, are going to look a little bit better, right? Depends on what you want to see. Do you want to see something good looking? Then I would say look at the Qs. If you want to be a little bit more subjective, you could look at NASDAQ futures and you could say, we didn't get over yesterday's high pre-market, right? Where we were. So that's something to keep an eye on. But let's go back to the Qs for just a second. I think that this is pretty positive that we did get over these levels and that we came into the top of value and we held. And that's the same thing with NASDAQ futures. So again, notice the digestion after taking out this red line, which is the overhead supply, virgin point of control, right? We're digesting, and let's give it some patience to see if we can move higher. Again, the breadth is confirming we don't really have any major divergence right now with the price going up, telling us, giving us a warning sign there, right? So I think that's actually, pretty positive. And then if we look at the sectors, right? One last thing too, I wanted to cover IWM. Sorry about that. IWM, you know that we got rejected a couple times here at the top of value, but we're testing in here again. So really what I want to see for the small caps is for us to break above the value area for the month of April. That's 178.86. Again, price has done that for the S&P and for the Qs, not so much for IWM, not so much for IWC, which has bigger ground to cover, and the mid caps are also pushing into that top of value. So you've got some defined levels to watch, right? I would want to see for the S&P and the Qs, in summary, is for them to take out and go move above yesterday's highs, right? For IWM and the mid caps, it's the top of value. And again, you could go back in your video and you can get those levels. All right, let's talk about something that was pretty aggressive today, gold, right? So as I bring up, just go back to this worksheet, 3 areas that I thought were really interesting, that have absolutely really nothing to do with one another. In terms of like, if there's any meaning in between them, I guess you can find something common between them, but the biotechs, solar, and gold all really strong today, right? Maybe you could say because the dollar went down, which I think it did for the day. What was the dollar was down another 0.5% for the day. Maybe that's a theme that you can kind of take out of that. Notice that UUP, which is the US dollar bullish ETF, got rejected, right? So again, that's why these value areas are so important, right? Right where this thing is supposed to turn the corner, or could possibly turn the corner, got rejected at 27.92, and we're almost back to the year's lows. By the way, VPOC being taken out here to the downside. So, but overall, the dollar being weak, right, is not a bad thing for stocks, right? And especially when you go through areas and you look at things like gold. So gold making a new high here. This is an impressive move. A little bit of a pushback here on lower volume, bigger move on the break higher, right? So, a couple of things that I've been involved in. I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't get a bigger move in the silver name, because we have seen option activity, but it did get kind of rejected here at this 1-hour virgin point of control. For now, it's a rejection. It's not really breaking down, but it did hit that overhead supply. And, again, you can't see that on the daily chart. That's why we use multiple time frame analysis. But again, these things, when you look at where there's overhead supply on multiple time frames, it could really help you, and that's where I took a target today. Right? I knew it would be foolish of me not to take a target where there was overhead supply. So I took a target in that today. I also added, Newmont was a name, right? So again, the market, the TTG market webs really give you a roadmap, right, in terms of where to take profits. I was in a swing trade a couple of weeks ago, and I took profits right at this version point of control. Now I since added this trade back. Again, it's interesting that some of the bigger gold miner names like a Newmont and a Barrick are not as strong as some of the smaller names are. All right. Wow, really got the sun going. But I like the dip into the top of value. I'm also watching this GOLD, which I actually like the technicals a little bit better because they're a little bit stronger here in Barrick Gold. I guess I'll show you the 1 hour chart first because Thinkorswim is not pulling up the daily. But here's your breakout of the value area, and I think you can be long GOLD Barrick Gold versus 1990, right? In the short term, right? And here's your little consolidation and push higher. And ultimately, what's nice here, we don't want to see those red lines nearby. And I don't see one here. Just let Thinkorswim adjust, I think, for a couple bucks up. So if it can manage to stay above 1990, there's a chance for this really to trend a bit. All right, so that's gold. The biotechs, this is just another point that I wanted to make really quickly. This year so far, right, we've seen a lot of different sectors catch momentum for a while, right? We know that we've seen the semiconductors do it. If you go back a little bit further, we saw a bunch of momentum in industrials, like small cap industrials, right? And then the momentum kind of came out of them once we saw some weaker economics. But we are seeing this rotation underneath the hood, which I think is pretty good. Of course, you kind of have to just keep up with the rotation, go after it while it does have the momentum, and then take profits when the momentum kind of moves out. Right now, what has the momentum is biotech stocks, right? Something that I think I forgot to mention in yesterday's video. We did talk about it we talked about it a lot yesterday in the Tribeca Trade Group trading room yesterday, but really impressive moves by both biotech, medical devices, and some medical equipment names. If you look at some of the names, right, I always like to see what moves, right? Not just the ETF itself, but remember, the ETF is all it is the ETF is a product or a wrapper, right, over a basket of names, right? So when you look at what some of the names did today, the movers, I mean, it's pretty crazy. There's a lot of names that were up over 10%. In fact, there's 35 names that were up over 10% in the IBB ETF. A lot of really small cap names. You probably, there's and again, sometimes it's better to play this group through the ETF itself because, a Z-Lab or a GTX, or, you go through these things, VREV, an edit, right, which is kind of coming off the lows a bit. But these are tough names to play, right? And unless you're making a living, just trading biotech names. But if you're kind of more of a tourist in the biotech area, then you could just trade these names, in my opinion, through the ETF. IHI, I've mentioned this one a couple times, which is the medical device ETF. I think the trend looks pretty solid in this group, right? And again, a lot of names, this Bruker has been doing very well, by the way, BRKR, Shockwave, a couple of these charts just to go over really quickly. But again, I talked to some traders and they're like, I don't want this exposure to smaller cap biotech names because of the event risk with a drug or anything like that. Here's Shockwave, right? So of course you could play the whole group, right? And that's how that's the advantage of the ETF, is that number one, you don't have to know the particulars of every company. Number two, you're diversifying yourself away from that stock specific risk in case one of these companies miss on a drug study or on a device study or something of that nature. But this looks pretty good to me, right? Here's your trend, here's your move out of the trend line. You almost as well, like I could draw another trend line here if you want to go crazy with trend lines, and you can maybe say that this is kind of like a neckline of an inverted head and shoulders that's building. Again, it's abstract, right? Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, maybe something on the slant like that. But again, you're looking at a group that was trading. I don't want to go back and say it's going to go back up to 67, but it made a high there at 67. It's still at a pretty significant discount from where it was trading about a year ago, right? I don't think it's like, oh geez, like it's extended here, right? I think it could just be starting to make its move. I did add this. I managed two different portfolios, and I did add this in the TTG trend portfolio about 2 weeks ago. I think, sorry, it may have been last week. But regardless, it's in there, I think, at a 5% weight. All right, so that group was strong today. And then also the solar group. And again, this is also a tough group to trade, right? The solar group has not been easy to trade, right? I always get questions about, so first of all, here's the way that you could play it, right? I would watch for a break over 78.19. I would rather be a little bit late here because this is a very sideways looking chart. I was going to mention, I always get questions on ENPH. ENPH is too tricky for me. Some people can trade it. I can't. It's just it doesn't have a good trend, right? It's too many days it goes up one day and then it doesn't have any follow through, right? Or if it does have a couple of days of follow through, then it comes undone rather quickly. So these are not cheap names too in the solar group. So you could go through one by one. I mean, I like the look of this MAXN, even though it didn't participate in today's rally in solar names. I think the trend is very strong. First Solar did a great job at shaking off a downgrade today too. And I think the downgrade was just on valuation, but that name is going to have earnings pretty soon. All right, so that's a couple names, a couple groups. Again, very odd to see that. So overall, I don't want to keep this video too long. A couple names that I'm still in, which I think look pretty good. Rambus. I would like to see new names in this one. I'm also still in some Perry. Palo Alto was a name that I put on yesterday. Ultimately, I'm looking for this to get to 204. But if it breaks back below 193.89, then I know where to get out of it. So quick summary. Of course, we could go through a bunch of other names, but I'm going to try to keep it short tonight. Guys, have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.